This morning I want to talk a little bit about the concept of karma. There are a lot of interpretations of this word, and there's a lot of scholarly discussion about its heritage in the Indic history, and in Hinduism and in Buddhism, Jainism, and so forth. And there are a lot of ways of talking about it. So I'm going to talk about it the way it makes sense to me. And maybe this will give you a sort of an idea of how to integrate our notions of practice into our the life that we have inherited from beginningless time. So this spring I've talked about Buddhist ethics and how they're grounded in the practice of meditation. And as we know, in meditation, we cultivate a wide view that gives us some insight into the perspective of the narrowness of our self-supporting view. That's part of the practice of meditation, both concentration and insight, to see the self, to study the self. And we begin to see that there are infinite views other than our own. And our practice asks us to see the limits of our personal view and to soften its edges in the compassion of awareness so that we can see others more clearly and care for them. In this way, we have the opportunity to break the chains of karma so as not to cause harm. The popular conception of the idea of karma in 21st century American society, and probably all of us started to get exposed to this, in the 60s, those of us who were around at that time. It's a popular conception is that it's a kind of fate, a kind of way to explain why things happen, especially surprising or unexpected things, like having cancer or winning the lottery or meeting your spouse, unplanned things. But this is not the Buddhist concept of karma. And as I said, there's considerable philosophical debate about karma. So what I'm going to say about it could be debated as to its religious accuracy, but that's not the point. And here's my understanding. The concept of karma explains the momentary existence of any phenomenon as a result of multiple causes and effects that coalesce in a moment of time. It's a dynamic process that's ongoing and ever evolving. A few weeks ago, I planted some seeds in our little greenhouse. They're now little plants, about this big. They have starting to have their secondary leaves. And they're almost ready to be transplanted when the weather gets warm enough. Where did these seeds come from? Where does any seed come from? Just contemplate one seed, one little seed, maybe a squash seed, which is a fairly big seed actually in the world of seeds. How did it get here? It grew in a squash, who grew from a seed, who grew in a squash, who grew from a seed, who grew from a squash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get the picture. So when did this process start? The beginning is unknown, really. And there were other influences. The weather with its causes and effects, this soil with its causes and effects, the nutrients in the soil, the sun with its causes and effects, the air with its causes and effects, the farmer who planted each successive seed all the way back to the person who noticed the sequence of propagation and harvested and planted the first seed. And before to the origins of life, and before that to what? So we say beginningless karma, infinite causes and effects coalescing in dynamic changing relationship to result in momentary, ephemeral existence that itself becomes the cause of future effects. Everything working together, the seed becomes a plant that flowers, is pollinated, bears fruit, and makes more seeds. Or maybe it gets harvested and cooked and eaten and provides sustenance for an animal or a human being. It becomes a cause of the ongoing existence of another being. To think about the karma of just one seed is to begin to understand the complexity of our own karma, the myriad causes and effects that result in my existence right now, my existence here, sitting in front of this screen, talking to 16 two-dimensional pictures. So just let that sink in for a second. Where you came from and everything that had to cohere for you to exist and to be here today, right now, and to be here virtually. And that puts our little old selves in perspective, doesn't it? And then also, somehow, the beginningless karma of human existence resulted in something that we call consciousness. Do other beings have this trait? Maybe. I don't know that for sure. I sometimes like to imagine that that's the case. I think we value our consciousness very highly, maybe more than anything else, because it gives us a sense of self and the desire to preserve that self. Sometimes when I think about the possibility of an afterlife, I think that the most important thing to be perceived, I don't care if my body goes away. This old crumbling body, painful body, that's okay. You can go away, but I want to stay there. I want to be conscious. I want to see this all happening. That would be nice. I don't know. I don't really particularly care if that happens because I have no control over it. But still, it points to how important I think our sense of consciousness is to us. And it's also what gets us into trouble because it's packaged in individual selves, each of which has the project of self-protection, endowed with senses, emotions, instincts, volition, and intelligence, all as a result of the interaction of infinite causes and effects. And it seems that one of the projects of human consciousness is to wonder who we are and how we got here and what to do about it. We make innumerable choices and take innumerable actions, each of which results in a stream of effects. The Buddhist approach is to try to grow consciousness so that each of our perspectives is big enough to understand that we are both individual and relational, both self and not self, bending a stream of karma toward compassion and wisdom in the face of constantly changing existence, the impermanence that is at the heart of suffering. This is why the idea of karma and the effect of our action is so central to Buddhist thought. Because as human beings, we can actually make a difference through our practice of waking up. I'll just digress a moment to say that often karma is linked to the notion of rebirth. That is, if I'm a good person and do good acts, I'll be reborn in more favorable circumstances, or maybe in a pure land of ease, beauty, and perfection, or maybe not come back at all, finally free of samsara and completely transformed to nirvana. This doesn't particularly interest me as a study. I'm much more interested in this life and how I live it, and trying to understand what's going on, and trying to heal my own suffering, and from that understanding the suffering of others and trying to help, because you and I are connected in this great karmic stream. Our well-being is connected. So therefore, I see in our society, we're in a karmic position of racial inequality and injustice at this moment in time. We didn't cause this situation. We can look back in history and chronicle how it arose. And this is a valuable study to help us see what happened and to begin to understand how different people experience the result of these causes and effects. I have a white middle class perspective. I can't help that, but I can learn. I can start to look past my secure existence to hear and understand that people whose skin is not white experience our society and my behavior differently than I do. And their experience is not so nice. And I can choose how to act, and my choices will have effects. And perhaps my intention to alleviate suffering with the help of others will have a healing impact for me and others. And the old harmful racial karma will shift, even if in a small way. And if we all do this, maybe there can be societal healing. This karma is not my fault, but I can accept it as an opportunity, as a responsibility even. And I think that is what my vow asks me to do. And so I'll read again something that I posted, a quote from Shantideva, the 8th century sage, philosopher, maybe kind of Buddhist saint. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need.